Imagine having a family of 7 people visiting. Blow up mattresses and couches become beds. Bathroom time has to be limited to allow time for everybody. Meal prep is harder, and cleaning up after is a chore for everyone. Then they want to stay up after midnight, and you're exhausted. Tension, stress, and patience is gone, and you are oh so ready for them to leave. But these campers were strangers and unruly, and they didn't leave. It would not have gone well for me. Amendment number 3 of the Constitution is no quartering of soldiers in a private residence without the owner's approval. This was an ongoing problem for the colonists. The British sent over so many soldiers, they didn't have room for them. So, what else would they do? They commandeered private homes. They first filled public buildings, then warehouses, then barns, and the colonists were forced to provide soldiers with firewood, candles, bedding, beer, and food. In major cities, there was no more room for the soldiers, and these soldiers were rowdy and broke things. They were angry and ate a lot of food. They were dirty and had to be cleaned up after. And if you had any teenage girls in the house, soldiers got pretty friendly with them too. All in all, it was an action despised by the colonists. That is why they made sure it was put in the Third Amendment. This applies to today as well. We don't have to worry about housing our military today. There's a part of the Pentagon that makes sure housing is available no matter where our military go. If there is an overflow of soldiers, there are bases prepared to house them. One such base is Gowan Field in Boise, Idaho. Most of the democratic countries are doing the same for their military. Exceptions are Switzerland and Norway. They don't have much of a standing army, so they have, if they're invaded for war or public buildings, they call the men in their country to duty, and a few homes are designated to accommodate these soldiers, but they will commandeer homes. But because of our Constitution, we don't have to worry about this. Amendment number 4 through 6 are about citizens' rights when dealing with the law. I made an amazing train birthday cake for my oldest son's 5th birthday. I used small loaf pans for the cars and the engine and put a cupcake on the front and an ice cream cone on the top for the smokestack. Everything was frosted with buttercream, and I used Oreos for wheels and took a piece of cardboard and put foil over it, put black string shoelace licorice for tracks, and each car had a different candy stuck in the frosting on top of it. It was a masterpiece. I got up early on that Sunday morning and put the candies on the cars and put it in the middle of the dining room table. It was a centerpiece. The kids were so excited about it. We all went to church anticipating having dinner and cake when we got home. Well, that didn't happen. We got home and the cake was mostly eaten, and there were crumbs leading to the back door. The back doorknob was sticky. I followed the crumbs up the street 3 houses and then looked at that house with frosting on their doorknob. I was mad. I knocked loudly on the door and my neighbor answered. I accused her children of breaking into my house. The doors were never locked. We never had a reason to. She called her 2 girls to the door, and they pled innocent, even though the youngest had frosting on her chin. The mom said she would take care of it from there, and she just profusely apologized. I went home really upset and tried to salvage what I could of the cake. Amendment number 4 is about protecting people and their privacy and possessions, and a need for a warrant. Those 2 cake-robbing girls, if they had had a warrant to be in my house, from a judge, they may have gotten away with it. It is important you understand your rights well enough to know when your rights are being abused. The Fourth Amendment protects your body, home, luggage, and personal papers. It does not cover items that are in plain view or your trash, like those detective TV shows where they go dumpster diving through the trash looking for evidence. That's a real thing. It's stinky, but it's legal. However, police are to get a warrant to search your home, with two exceptions. One of them is if you just tell them it's okay, then they can come in. And if there's an emergency, someone's hurt inside or there's impending problems inside, they can immediately come inside. To get a warrant to search or seizure you in your home, it has to be issued by a judge, and the military or the police must provide evidence of your guilt somehow. Also, police may search a car if they have reason to pull it over without a warrant. I learned this in 1971, long time ago. Um, my husband and his best friend were on a county recreation basketball team. They had an early evening game at 6 o'clock. They got off work at 5, had to eat, change into a uniform, and get to the basketball court on time. I had a doctor's appointment that day too, so I had taken them to work. They worked at the same place. And I picked them up, and my husband drove home like a madman. We jumped out of the car and ran in, and they changed their clothes, and I grabbed the sack lunches I had made for us to eat on the way, and we were out the door in no time, and we were on our way to this game. We headed for the car when all of a sudden the police came at us from every direction. They had guns pointed at us, and they told us to raise our hands and face the car. They patted us down. My heart was racing, and then I got mad because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, so what in the world had my husband done? They searched the car and began to ask questions. Around 5 o'clock that day, a bank had been robbed. The description of two tall males in early 20s and a short red-headed woman had held up the bank. We were spotted by an officer speeding in that area, so he followed us and called it in. We had jumped out of the car and ran in the house looking guilty, changed our clothes, and tried to drive away in a hurry, which looked guilty, and they thought for sure they had the robbers. They explained to us we had different license plates and the front and back of our car, and this gave them the right to search us and the car. And they were right. And we did look suspicious. We were released and got to the game late, but they still got to play, and all was well. The police can stop and frisk you, which is to pat you down on your outer clothing, only if they believe you are armed and dangerous. Otherwise, you have rights. They can't do that. A modern Fourth Amendment protection has been added to the Fourth Amendment. It's digital privacy. A warrant is needed to search or take your cell phone and to track location information off of your cell phone. It is true if evidence is gathered without a warrant, it can't be used against you and is dismissed in court. Bottom line, you have rights and privacy and protection against anyone coming into your home or searching you without your okay or a warrant. Remember that. I did have the right to be ticked off at those neighbor girls. After the smoke from my anger subsided, I did forgive them and tried to mend relationships with those neighbors for my overreacting. The Fifth Amendment guarantees your rights in court of law. It has 5 parts, and I'm sure you've heard of one of them. It's called I Plead the Fifth. This is now called the Miranda rights. The police must quote it to you before they can ask you questions in interrogation. In 1966, a Supreme Court ruling between Arizona and Ernesto Miranda ruled in favor of Ernesto, even though he had committed armed robbery, rape, and kidnapping. He was later retried in a different court and convicted. The Supreme Court had wanted to set a precedence for making sure people knew their rights to remain silent, so it was important this case was handled correctly. Because of this, the judicial system protected the Constitution and made the ruling all police had to inform people of their rights. Thus, the Miranda Rights was born. Another thing to know is illegal immigrants can also plead the Fifth, even though they're not citizens. Today, on July 28th, 2026, Anthony Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment 111 times during a Senate hearing. He was being asked whether he was truthful in previous hearings about the coronavirus epidemic. Some senators wanted him to admit past wrongdoings, but he just pled the Fifth, and he frustrated the bejeebies out of them. This ruling makes me think of some of my children when they were small and looked up at me with scrunched up faces and their arms folded, giving me the silent treatment. This slows down the fact finding, but it can backfire on you and make you look more guilty to your accusers. Matter of fact, this whole amendment thing makes me think of parenting skills you learn as you grow up with your kids. Amendment number 5 also says you have the right to a grand jury if you are accused of a federal crime. A grand jury is a group of people selected to decide whether the prosecutor has evidence you are guilty. If yes, then you're sent to a trial. The grand jury is there as a fact-finding tool to protect you. It's like a child who you found on the back porch eating a candy bar, and you have no idea where it came from. You are the grand jury, fact-finding and handling the situation. Your mind is racing from, they stole it, to a kind neighbor gave it to them. This information gathering moment gives clarity to whether a crime has been committed and warrants a punishment or a hug. The next part of the Fifth Amendment stops the government from trying you twice for the same thing. It's a double jeopardy safeguard. It's like the importance of dad and mom being on the same page so a child doesn't get punished from mom for punching a sibling in the eye, and then when dad gets home and sees the black eye, the child gets yelled at again for punching the sibling. The next is right to due process. The government must follow fair and legal rules before they can take your life, freedom, or property. Of course, in a family setting, no matter what, it's not right to take a child's life, even though sometimes you want to spank the living daylights out of them. Like when they get your oil paintings out and sit on your double ring quilted by your grandmother made for you. Yep, that happened. Family rules and core beliefs need to be taught and in place before punishing a child. Punishment should be proportionate to the crime. Spanking should be predetermined and held only 2 spanks. Age of a child and their understanding of rules should be considered. Following through with correct punishment that is already in place or carefully considered then is just. In a civil situation, citizen has the right to a fair trial using established laws. The last part of Amendment 5 is the government compensation. The government is to pay a fair price for your property. It is needed for public use, such as widening roads, and the city needs some of your property line. In a family, I think every family member at home should pitch in for everyday chores that keeps the home functioning. Jobs beyond that are opportunities for children to earn money and learn how to spend and save. Being fairly compensated for what is yours, whether it's land or time, makes everyone happier and feel valued. Amendment number 6 is the right of a person charged with a federal offense. Things like a speedy trial so you're not hanging around the jail forever. Rights to an impartial jury entitled to a defense lawyer and to have witnesses in your behalf. This is equivalent to being a kid accused of accused by a tattletelling sibling who went running to Mom to get you in trouble. The yelling made Mom put you in timeout while she gathered facts and witnesses. Then the tattleteller and you come before Mom, the judge, and the whole story unfolds. The original story told may have been an opinion, not the whole truth. The witnesses add clarity to the situation so Mom, the judge, can make a ruling of punishment and use this as a teaching moment for all concerned. The Seventh Amendment deals with common law between citizens. You can take a person to court for a dispute of $200. It also states a judge cannot override a jury decision, but the judge can call a mistrial and send everything back to start over again. The Seventh Amendment is no excessive bail or cruel and unusual punishment. My mother had come to the end of her rope, and almost her life too. She was having heart problems, caring for a bedridden mother and a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and 4 other children, and Dad was bishop. We lived on a farm in the 1950s. Life wasn't easy for her, and then she was sent to bed for a few months. I was 4 years old. My older sister was in school as well as my brothers. My younger sister was content sitting with my mother and reading stories and playing games. I liked that too for a while, and then I just needed the outdoors to run and explore. I could escape all locked doors at age 4. Day by day, I would leave for an hour or two. I was warned and spanked for leaving. Somehow the great outdoors just kept calling me, and I would go. Dad finally took me to my brother's bedroom downstairs, where my yells for help wouldn't disturb Mother or Grandma. My brothers were gone, and he had work to do. So he tied me to the bed frame and threatened me not to break those bands. By Dad's tone of voice, I knew he meant it. As I laid there, I decided, I don't like my dad anymore. From here on out, Dad and I have a different version of this story. In all reality, I think I would rely on my dad's story. He has witnesses. My 4-year-old memory recalls me laying there with a 4-inch thick log chain wrapped around my ankle. It bound me to a dark prison where I cried myself to sleep and woke up hours later to find myself still there. It felt like I was incarcerated forever. Dad said he used a 1 layer of kite string and tied me to the bedpost. He does agree that he threatened me within an inch of my life if I broke it. He did turn off the light, but before the door opened and left the door open into the hallway with the light on in the hall. He left me there long enough to change his clothes, gather eggs, walk a mile to my great-grandmother's house, give her a newspaper, eggs, and then walk back home. He came back to me an hour later and talked to me about staying home when he was gone. I promised him I would, and he untied me. However, I eventually somehow forgave him. But the whole log chain, dark room, lengthy imprisonment was how I remembered it. It's interesting how emotions get involved in our experiences, that sometimes reality gets blown out of proportion and we hold unwarranted grudges. It just makes me wonder how many kite strings I have mistaken for log chains. This experience was, to a 4-year-old's mind, cruel and unusual punishment, and was against my constitutional rights, as I thought it was at that time. The Ninth Amendment is a catch-all for people. It states that the Constitution needs to be understood at all times that all rights went to the people. The founders wanted it to be understood just because it wasn't mentioned in the Constitution. They were not forfeiting anything to the federal government. The people were to have all the rights beyond what was mentioned in the Constitution. The 10th Amendment is like the 9th. It states, unless the Constitution spells out an assigned duty, The federal government had no right to enter that field of endeavor. Today, this is the most widely abused provision in the Constitution. The states should be governed over most all concerns, and the federal government over a few. So, why do we have federal officers over education, for example? I wonder. We now have covered the Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments. These are brilliantly written, spurred on by real life events in our founders' lives and their ability to see future needs to safeguard our freedoms. Yay for the Bill of Rights! God be with you till we meet again.